Part 1. First Contact. Gone Wrong. The Zephyrian diplomatic vessel. Harmony's voice drifted silently through the outer edge of the Sol system. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed behind his back as he watched the primitive planet grow larger on the main screen. Earth looked exactly like what his species had found countless times before, a small blue world with one moon, inhabited by creatures who had barely learned to leave their atmosphere. "Sir, we're detecting radio signals from the planet," reported his communications officer, Zek Lin. Her voice carried the usual boredom that came with routine first contact missions. "Basic electromagnetic transmissions. They appear to be broadcasting entertainment and information across their planet." Veltar nodded. This was standard. Young species always discovered radio before they discovered faster-than-light travel. The Zephyrians had done the same thing, thousands of years ago, back when they were still bound to one world. "Any signs of space-based weapons?" he asked. "Negative, sir. They have some chemical rockets and a few small stations orbiting their planet, but nothing that could threaten our shields." Perfect. Veltar had conducted 47 first contact missions in his career. The process was always the same. Approach the primitive world, demonstrate superior technology, offer them protection under the Zephyrian Confederation, and add another species to their growing alliance. Most species were grateful for the opportunity to join galactic civilization. "Take us closer," Veltar ordered. "Prepare the standard greeting message in their dominant languages." The ship moved deeper into the system, passing the red planet they called Mars. Veltar studied the data streaming across his screens. The humans, that's what they called themselves, had only recently begun exploring their own solar system. They had sent primitive robots to nearby planets and established small colonies on their moon. It was actually impressive for such a young species. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet," Zeklin said, her voice suddenly less bored. "Already? We haven't even announced ourselves yet. The message is coming from one of their space stations. They're demanding we identify ourselves and state our intentions." Veltar's tail twitched with amusement. These humans had better sensors than expected. Most primitive species didn't detect Zephyrian ships until they wanted to be detected. "Send them the standard greeting," he ordered. "Tell them we come in peace, representing the Zephyrian Confederation. We're here to welcome them to the galactic community." While his crew worked, Veltar studied what their computers had learned about human culture. They were a curious species, divided into many nations, constantly fighting small wars, but also capable of impressive cooperation. They had survived several planet-wide conflicts and even managed to avoid destroying themselves with nuclear weapons. That was more than many species achieved. "Sir, we've received their response to our greeting," Zeklin said. Her voice sounded confused. "What did they say?" "They want to know why we entered their solar system without permission. They're asking us to explain our intentions and, sir, they're demanding we leave immediately." Veltar's forearms spread in surprise. In 47 first contact missions, no species had ever demanded he leave. Most were either terrified or excited to meet representatives of a galactic civilization. "Perhaps they misunderstood our message," he said. "Send the full explanation. Tell them about the benefits of joining the Confederation, protection from hostile species, access to advanced technology, trade opportunities." "Sending now, sir." Veltar waited. The response would probably be more positive once the humans understood what they were being offered. Every species wanted protection and advanced technology. The reply came faster than expected. "Sir, they're refusing our offer." Refusing? Veltar had never heard those words in this context before. "Did you translate it correctly?" "Yes, sir. They said they don't want our protection, they don't need our technology, and they're ordering us to leave their solar system in the next 24 hours. "Order us to leave?" Veltar's voice rose in pitch. "Do they understand who they're speaking to? We represent 12 star systems and hundreds of worlds." "I don't think they care, sir." This was unprecedented. Veltar activated his personal communicator and contacted the Confederation High Council directly. "Council Leader Mordak, I have an unusual situation here," he reported. "The humans are refusing first contact." "Refusing?" The ancient Zephyrian's voice crackled through the communicator. "That's impossible. No primitive species refuses protection." "These ones are, sir. They want us to leave their system." There was a long pause. "Very well. Demonstrate our capabilities. Show them a few energy discharges in empty space. Once they see our power, they'll reconsider." Veltar ordered his weapons officer to fire several energy bursts at a distant asteroid. The beams vaporized the rock completely, leaving only glowing particles drifting in space. It was an impressive display that had convinced many stubborn species to cooperate. The human response came within minutes. "Sir, they're angry," Zeklin reported. "They're saying we just committed an act of aggression in their solar system." "Aggression? We fired at empty rock." "They don't see it that way, sir. They're calling it a threat and a violation of their sovereignty." Veltar stared at the communications display. These humans were completely unreasonable. Didn't they understand that the Zephyrians were offering them a gift? Protection, technology, membership in a galactic community. And they saw it as aggression? "Sir, we're detecting movement from their planet," his sensor officer reported. "Multiple ships launching from their surface." "Ships? How many?" "Dozens, sir. Small craft, chemical propulsion, but they're armed." Veltar looked at the tactical display. The human ships were tiny compared to his vessel, moving slowly on primitive engines. They couldn't possibly threaten a Zephyrian diplomatic ship. "What are they doing?" he asked. "They appear to be forming a defensive formation between us and their planet, sir." "Defensive? Against us?" The answer came in the form of weapons fire. The human ships opened fire with kinetic weapons, metal projectiles launched at high speed. The shots bounced harmlessly off the Zephyrian shields, but the intent was clear. "Sir, they're shooting at us!" Zeklin shouted. "That's impossible," Veltar said, but he could see it happening on his screens. "We're a diplomatic vessel. We offered them membership in galactic civilization." "Why are they attacking?" The human ships pressed their attack. More vessels launched from the planet. Fighters, shuttles, even civilian craft that had been hastily armed. They fired everything they had at the Zephyrian ship. Kinetic weapons, primitive energy beams, even chemical explosives. None of it could penetrate Zephyrian shields. But Veltar watched in growing amazement as the humans kept coming. When their weapons proved ineffective, they began ramming attempts. Small fighters flew directly at his ship, trying to damage it through collision. "Sir, request orders," his pilot said nervously. "They're not stopping." Veltar had never faced anything like this. These humans were fighting a battle they couldn't possibly win against an enemy who had offered them friendship. It made no sense. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human fleet," Zeklin reported. "Put it through." A human face appeared on the screen. Female with short dark hair and determined eyes. She wore some kind of military uniform. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," she said. "You have violated our solar system and threatened our planet. You have 30 seconds to retreat beyond the orbit of Pluto, or we will consider this an act of war." "Act of war?" Veltar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Admiral Chen, I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Confederation. We came here in peace. We offered your species protection and membership in our alliance." "We didn't ask for your protection," Chen replied. "We don't want your alliance. You entered our space without permission and fired weapons to intimidate us. That makes you an invader. But we can offer you technology beyond your imagination. Star travel, energy weapons, medical advances. We'll develop our own technology," Chen interrupted. "Now you have 15 seconds to begin retreating, or we'll show you exactly what human technology can do." The transmission ended. Veltar stared at the blank screen. In 47 first contact missions, nothing like this had ever happened. These humans were actually declaring war on the Zephyrian Confederation over an offer of protection. "Sir, what are your orders?" his pilot asked. Veltar looked at the tactical display. More human ships were launching every minute. They couldn't hurt his vessel, but their determination was unlike anything he'd ever encountered. These creatures were willing to fight to the death against impossible odds, simply to maintain their independence. "Set course for the edge of their system," he ordered. "We need to report this to the High Council." As the Harmony's voice began to retreat, Veltar watched the human ships maintain their formation. Even as he withdrew, they kept their weapons trained on his vessel, ready to resume their hopeless attack at the first sign of renewed aggression. He had just witnessed something completely new in his 47 missions of first contact. For the first time in Zephyrian history, a primitive species had declared war on the Confederation. And somehow, Veltar suspected this war was going to be very different. Part 2. Underestimating the Enemy Admiral. Kexelos of the Zephyrian battle fleet studied the holographic display of the Sol system with growing irritation. 3 months had passed since Commander Veltar's embarrassing retreat from Earth, and the High Council had finally decided to send a proper military response. The humans needed to learn their place in the galactic order. "How many ships do they have now?" Kexelos asked his intelligence officer. "Approximately 200 vessels, Admiral," Lieutenant Yorwin replied. "Most are converted civilian craft. Cargo haulers, mining ships, passenger transports. They've added weapons and armor plating, but they're still primitive." Kexelos nodded. He commanded 43 advanced warships, each one capable of destroying entire fleets of primitive vessels. The humans had numbers, but numbers meant nothing against superior technology. What about their defensive positions? They've built weapon platforms around their planet and moon, energy cannons salvaged from mining equipment, missile batteries, and some kind of electromagnetic pulse generators. Nothing our shields can't handle. The Admiral examined the tactical data more carefully. The humans had been busy during the 3 months since first contact. They'd militarized their entire space infrastructure and organized their scattered nations into something called the United Earth Defense Force. It was impressive organization for such a young species, but still hopeless against Zephyrian military might. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth," his communications officer announced. "Already? We're still 3 days out from their system." "Yes, sir. They appear to have improved their sensor range considerably." Kexelos frowned. The humans shouldn't be able to detect his fleet at this distance. Their technology was supposed to be centuries behind Zephyrian standards. Put the transmission through. The same human female from Veltar's reports appeared on screen, Admiral Sarah Chen. She looked older now, more tired, but her eyes held the same determination. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You are approaching our solar system with a military fleet. State your intentions." "I am Admiral Kexelos of the Zephyrian Confederation battle fleet," he replied formally. "We are here to enforce Confederation law. Your species attacked our diplomatic vessel and refused our generous offer of protection. This aggression cannot be tolerated." Chen's expression didn't change. "You entered our space without permission and threatened us with weapons fire. We defended ourselves. Now you're coming back with warships. That makes you the aggressor, not us. We offered you civilization. You chose barbarism. We chose freedom." Chen leaned forward in her chair. "Admiral, you still have time to turn your fleet around. We don't want war, but we won't surrender our independence." Kexelos felt his patience running thin. "Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your ships are slow and primitive. You cannot win this conflict." For the first time, Chen smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. "Admiral, you're about to learn something about humans that your intelligence reports missed. We don't fight to win. We fight to survive. And when we're fighting to survive, we become very creative." The transmission ended. Kexelos stared at the blank screen, trying to understand what the human meant. Fight to survive? Every species fought to survive. That was basic biology. Continue course to Earth, he ordered. Maintain battle formation. 2 days later, the Zephyrian fleet entered the outer edge of the Sol system. Kexelos expected immediate surrender once the humans saw the size of his force. Instead, his sensors detected movement throughout the system. "Admiral, we're picking up over 500 human vessels," his sensor officer reported. "They've tripled their fleet size since our last intelligence report." 500? Kexelos studied the tactical display. "Where did they get so many ships?" "Sir, it appears they've converted everything that can fly. Cargo vessels, passenger liners, research ships, even space-based manufacturing platforms. Some of them are barely space-worthy." The Admiral watched as the human fleet moved to intercept his forces. The vessels were indeed primitive, ugly, improvised, and clearly built in desperate haste, but there were so many of them. "Sir, the human fleet is moving into attack formation," his tactical officer announced. "Let them come. Maintain course for their homeworld." The battle began when the two fleets were still hours apart. The humans opened fire first, launching thousands of missiles from extreme range. Most of the weapons were primitive chemical rockets that couldn't possibly threaten Zephyrian shields. "But they kept coming." "Sir, they're firing everything they have," the tactical officer reported. "Missiles, kinetic rounds, energy weapons, even some kind of explosive drones." Kexelos watched the display as wave after wave of human weapons crashed harmlessly against his fleet's shields. The humans were wasting ammunition on futile attacks. Then the first surprise hit. "Admiral, we're taking minor shield damage on the Victorious," his fleet coordinator reported. "Shield damage? How is that possible?" "The humans are using focused electromagnetic pulses, sir. They're not trying to penetrate our shields. They're trying to overload them." Kexelos frowned. That was actually clever. Instead of trying to break through Zephyrian defenses, the humans were attempting to exhaust them. It wouldn't work against properly maintained military shields, but it showed tactical thinking. The second surprise came when his fleet entered weapons range. "Sir, the human vessels are scattering," his sensor officer reported. "They're not maintaining formation." "Cowards," Kexelos muttered. "Target the largest ships first." But as his weapons opened fire, the scattered human vessels began executing a new strategy. Instead of running away, they were coming closer. Much closer. "Admiral, several human ships are on collision courses with our vessels," the tactical officer warned. "Collision courses? That's suicide." "Yes, sir. But they're not stopping." Kexelos watched in amazement as a converted human cargo hauler, already badly damaged by Zephyrian fire, accelerated directly toward his flagship. The vessel's shields were down, its weapons destroyed, but it kept coming. "Destroy that ship," he ordered. His gunners opened fire, but the human vessel had already reached its target, not his flagship, but the heavy cruiser Dominator, the cargo. Hauler smashed into the Zephyrian ship's hull, its chemical engines detonating on impact. The explosion barely scratched the cruiser's armor. But Kexelos stared in shock. The humans had just sacrificed an entire ship and crew for a completely ineffective attack. Then he realized it wasn't ineffective. It was a distraction. While his gunners focused on the suicide ship, 3 other human vessels had slipped past his defensive fire. They weren't trying to ram his ships. They were launching boarding pods. "Sir, we have human soldiers attempting to board the Dominator," his fleet coordinator reported. "Boarding? They can't possibly breach our hulls with primitive cutting tools." "They're not using cutting tools, sir. They're using mining charges. Lots of them." The tactical display showed bright flashes along the Dominator's hull as human demolition teams blasted their way through the outer armor. It was crude, dangerous, and completely insane, but it was working. "Sir, the humans have breached Deck 7 of the Dominator. Security teams are responding." Kexelos couldn't believe what he was seeing. The humans were actually fighting their way inside a Zephyrian warship. No primitive species had ever attempted such madness. "What's the status of the boarding teams?" "Fighting continues on Decks 6 through 9, sir. The humans are. Sir, they're not following standard boarding protocols. What do you mean? They're using explosives indiscriminately. They're damaging their own escape routes. Some of them are fighting while wounded. Our security teams report the humans refuse to surrender even when clearly defeated. Kexlos felt a chill run through his forearms. These humans were fighting like cornered animals, with no regard for their own survival. The battle continued for 6 hours. The human fleet took massive casualties, over half their ships destroyed or disabled, but they kept fighting. Every time Kexlos thought he had broken their resistance, more human vessels appeared from behind asteroids or moons, launching desperate attacks. And the attacks were getting more effective. Sir, they've disabled the Vigilant, his coordinator reported. The humans targeted her engine core with a coordinated missile strike. How did they know where to hit? Unknown, sir. But they're learning our ship designs very quickly. That was the third surprise. The humans were adapting their tactics in real time, studying Zephyrian ships during battle and finding weak points. They were learning faster than any species should be able to learn. Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from the human commander, the communications officer announced. Chen's face appeared on screen again. This time, she looked exhausted and her uniform was torn, but her voice was steady. Admiral Kexlos, you've killed 5,000 of my people today, but we're still here and we're still fighting. Your fleet is broken, Kexlos replied. Surrender now and we'll offer terms. Our fleet was never meant to win this battle, Admiral. It was meant to show you something. Show me what? Chen's tired face hardened. That humans don't give up. Ever. You can destroy our ships, but we'll build more. You can kill our soldiers, but more will take their place. And every battle you fight against us will teach us how to hurt you. The transmission ended. Part 3. The human war machine awakens. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the underground laboratory beneath the Swiss mountains, staring at the captured Zephyrian technology spread across dozens of work tables. 6 months had passed since Admiral Kexlos's retreat from the Sol system, and humanity had used every day to prepare for the inevitable return of their enemies. Any progress on the faster-than-light drive? She asked her lead engineer, Dr. Marcus Webb. Webb wiped sweat from his forehead and gestured at the alien device in front of him. We've figured out the basic principles. The Zephyrians use something called quantum tunneling through subspace. But Sarah, their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. That's what everyone said about atomic energy before we split the atom, Chen replied. Show me what you've learned. Webb activated a holographic display showing the inner workings of the Zephyrian engine. The key component is this crystalline matrix. It somehow creates a field that lets ships jump between dimensions. We can't reproduce the crystals, but we think we can brute force the same effect using nuclear fusion reactors. It won't be elegant, and it'll probably be dangerous. But it might work. Chen nodded. Elegance was a luxury humanity couldn't afford. How dangerous? There's a 30% chance the ship will explode on the first jump attempt. And if it works, we could have our first faster-than-light vessel ready for testing in 2 months. Chen made her decision. Do it. We'll need volunteers for the test flight. Sarah, a 30% death rate is better than a 100% slavery rate. Chen looked around the laboratory at the hundreds of scientists and engineers working day and night. Every person in this room volunteered to be here. Every person on Earth knows what's at stake. She was right. When the Zephyrian threat became public knowledge, humanity had responded in ways that surprised even Chen. Nations that had been enemies for centuries put aside their differences. Resources from around the world poured into the defense effort. Millions of people volunteered for dangerous assignments, from test piloting experimental ships to working in hazardous manufacturing plants. The war had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping since their last global conflict. Dr. Chen, you need to see this, called out Dr. Yuki Tanaka from across the laboratory. She was working on captured Zephyrian weapons technology. Chen walked over to Tanaka's workstation, where the Japanese physicist was examining an alien energy weapon. What did you find? The Zephyrians use directed plasma beams for their ship weapons. Very advanced, very efficient. But I think we can do better. Better than plasma beams? Tanaka smiled. The aliens focus on efficiency and elegance. We don't have to. Look at this. She activated her prototype weapon. Instead of a clean plasma beam, it fired a chaotic burst of energy that scattered in multiple directions. That looks less accurate than their version, Chen observed. Exactly. Their plasma beams are designed to hit specific targets with minimum energy waste. Our weapon is designed to hit everything in a wide area with maximum energy output. Chen understood immediately. Quantity over quality. Right. One Zephyrian ship fires one precise beam at one target. One human ship fires 20 wild beams at everything nearby. We can't match their accuracy, but we can overwhelm them with volume of fire. It was the same philosophy they'd applied to everything else. Human ships weren't as advanced as Zephyrian vessels, but they built 10 times as many. Human weapons weren't as precise as alien technology, but they fired 100 times more rounds. Human tactics weren't as elegant as military textbooks demanded, but they were unpredictable and chaotic. Chen's communicator buzzed. Dr. Chen, please report to Command Central immediately. She made her way through the underground tunnels to the main command center, where General Marcus Torres was coordinating Earth's global defense network. The walls were covered with displays showing ship construction, resource allocation, and intelligence reports from across the solar system. Sarah, we have a problem, Torres said without looking away from the strategic display. Our spy satellites detected Zephyrian ships massing at the edge of their territory. A lot of ships. Chen studied the intelligence data. How many? Over 200 vessels. Admiral Kexelos is coming back, and this time he's bringing friends. When? Our best estimate is 3 months. Maybe 4 if we're lucky. Chen felt her stomach tighten. 3 months to complete projects that should take years. 3 months to turn humanity into an interstellar power. What's the status on Project Exodus? She asked. Torres pulled up another display. 60% complete. We've identified 17 potentially habitable worlds within 50 light-years of Earth. If the Zephyrians break through our defenses, we evacuate the species, Chen finished. It was humanity's backup plan. Scatter small groups of humans across multiple worlds so that even if Earth fell, the species would survive. The evacuation ships will be ready in 2 months, Torres continued. But Sarah, we can only save about 50,000 people out of 8 billion. The weight of that number settled on Chen's shoulders. 50,000 survivors out of humanity's entire population, but it was better than extinction. Any word from the test flight team? Torres's expression grew grim. Captain Rodriguez and her crew jumped to the Alpha Centauri system 6 hours ago. We're still waiting for them to return. Captain Maria Rodriguez had volunteered to pilot humanity's first faster-than-light vessel, knowing she had only a 70% chance of survival. Her ship, Defiance, was an ugly hybrid of human engineering and stolen Zephyrian technology. If the test succeeded, it would prove that humans could achieve interstellar travel. If it failed... Dr. Chen, incoming transmission from Captain Rodriguez, a technician shouted. The main screen flickered to life, showing Rodriguez's face inside, her ship's cockpit. She looked shaken but alive. Earth Control, this is Defiance. Mission accomplished. We have successfully completed humanity's first faster-than-light journey. Cheers erupted throughout the command center. Chen felt tears in her eyes as she realized what this meant. Humanity was no longer trapped in one solar system. Captain, report your status, Torres requested. All systems functional, though the ride was rougher than expected. Sir, you need to know. We weren't alone out there. We detected Zephyrian patrol ships in the Alpha Centauri system. The cheering stopped. How many ships? Chen asked. At least a dozen. They're building some kind of staging area. I think they're planning to attack us from multiple directions. Chen exchanged glances with Torres. The Zephyrians weren't just coming. Back with a bigger fleet, they were surrounding Earth. Captain Rodriguez, return immediately. We need to debrief you and your crew. Already on our way back, sir. Defiance will arrive in 6 hours. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. General, Chen said quietly, I think it's time to implement the wild card. Protocol. Torres looked shocked. Sarah, that's completely untested. We don't even know if it's possible. We don't have a choice anymore. The Zephyrians have hundreds of ships, and they're surrounding our system. Even if we perfect our technology, we can't match their numbers. The wildcard protocol was humanity's most desperate plan. Instead of waiting for the enemy to attack Earth, they would take the war to the enemy. Using their new faster-than-light capability, human strike teams would attack Zephyrian worlds directly. It was a plan that violated every rule of warfare. Primitive species weren't supposed to attack advanced civilizations. They were supposed to surrender or be destroyed, but humans had never been good at following rules. How many ships can we have ready for the strike mission? Chen asked. 12 vessels, maybe 15 if we rush production. Each ship will carry a crew of 50 and enough firepower to level a city. Volunteers only, Chen insisted. Torres nodded. We'll have more volunteers than ships. The hard part will be choosing who gets to go. Chen walked to the large display showing Earth's position in the galaxy. Hundreds of Zephyrian worlds were marked in red, representing an empire that had dominated space for thousands of years. Soon, tiny blue dots would appear on that map. Human ships carrying the war to the enemy's doorstep. General, send a message. To all department heads. Tell them we're moving to Phase 3. Phase 3? Torres looked confused. Sarah, we never planned a Phase 3. Chen smiled grimly. Phase 1 was learning to defend ourselves. Phase 2 was learning to travel between stars. Phase 3 is teaching the galaxy why predators should never corner their prey. She looked around the command center at the men and women working frantically to save their species. In 6 months, these people had accomplished what should have been impossible. They had turned a peaceful planet into a war machine capable of challenging galactic powers. But more importantly, they had proven that humans would never accept defeat. No matter how powerful their enemies, no matter how hopeless the odds, humanity would keep fighting. And now they were about to show the Zephyrian Confederation what happened when the most dangerous species in the galaxy finally learned to reach for the stars. The war was about to become very interesting. Part 4. What makes humans different? Captain. Elena Vasquez floated in the cramped command center of the human ship Vengeance, watching the Zephyrian supply depot grow larger on her screens. 3 weeks had passed since the first human strike force left Earth, and this was their 4th target, a logistics base in the Kepler system that supplied fuel and weapons to Zephyrian fleets. Range to target? She asked her navigator. 2,000 kilometers and closing, Captain, Lieutenant Park replied. No signs we've been detected. Vasquez nodded. The Zephyrians weren't expecting attacks deep in their own territory. For thousands of years, primitive species had only fought defensive wars. The idea that humans would bring the battle to Zephyrian space was completely outside their experience. Weapon status? All missile tubes loaded. Energy cannon charged. Boarding pods ready for launch, reported Sergeant Martinez from the weapons station. Remember the mission, Vasquez told her crew. We're not here to destroy this base. We're here to capture it and everything inside it. That was what made human tactics so different. Other species fought to control territory or eliminate enemies. Humans fought to learn. Every battle was a chance to steal technology, study enemy weaknesses, and gather intelligence for the next attack. Captain, the depot is launching fighters, Park announced. 6. No, 8 small craft approaching. Let them come. Target their engines, not their hulls. We want prisoners. The Vengeance opened fire with precise energy bursts, disabling the Zephyrian fighters without destroying them. The alien pilots found themselves drifting helplessly as human boarding pods launched toward their disabled craft. Within minutes, Vasquez heard Sergeant Martinez's voice over the comm system. "Fighters secured, Captain. We have 3 live prisoners and a lot of intact technology." "Excellent. Begin Phase 2. The Vengeance accelerated toward the supply depot, which was now launching everything it had: more fighters, defensive drones, and automated weapons platforms. But the human ship didn't slow down. "Captain, they're targeting our engines," Park warned. "Expected. All hands, prepare for combat maneuvering." What happened next would have horrified any civilized military commander. Instead of maintaining safe distance and trading long-range fire, the Vengeance flew directly into the middle of the enemy formation. Zephyrian weapons fire filled space around the ship as Vasquez used the depot's own defensive platforms as cover. "Martinez, target the fuel storage tanks, minimum yield warheads." "Ma'am, if we breach those tanks, the explosion could destroy both them and us. That's why it's minimum yield. Do it." The human ship fired micro-missiles that punched small holes in the depot's fuel storage. Highly volatile Zephyrian fuel began venting into space, creating a cloud of explosive gas around the station. "All Zephyrian vessels, this is Captain Vasquez of the human ship Vengeance," she broadcast on all frequencies. "Your fuel depot is now surrounded by an explosive atmosphere. One energy discharge from any of your weapons will destroy this entire facility. Stand down immediately." The Zephyrian commander's face appeared on screen, a tall alien with 4 arms and expression of pure shock. "Human vessel, you're threatening to destroy yourself along with this depot. That's insane." "Commander, my species spent thousands of years perfecting the art of mutual destruction. We're very good at it. You have 30 seconds to surrender your facility." The alien commander looked around his bridge in confusion. "You can't be serious. You'd kill yourself just to deny us this supply base?" "Commander, during our last global war, humans flew explosive-filled aircraft directly into enemy ships. We strapped bombs to our bodies and walked into enemy positions. We held live grenades while charging fortified bunkers. Mutual destruction isn't insane to us. It's Tuesday." Vasquez could see the fear in the alien's eyes as he realized she wasn't bluffing. Humans were actually willing to die to achieve their objectives. We surrender," the commander said finally. "Smart choice. Order all your ships to dock with the depot. Any vessel that tries to escape will be destroyed." Within an hour, human boarding teams had secured the entire supply facility. Vasquez walked through the depot's corridors, studying the frightened Zephyrian prisoners and the massive stockpiles of advanced technology they'd captured. "Captain, you need to see this," called Dr. Kim from the depot's computer center. Vasquez found the scientist staring at displays filled with Zephyrian text and star charts. "What did you find?" "Their entire supply network. Captain, this depot services 12 star systems. If we can crack their computer codes, we'll know the location of every Zephyrian military base within 50 light-years of Earth." "How long to crack the codes?" "With conventional methods, years. But I have an idea that might work faster." Dr. Kim led Vasquez to a holding cell where Commander Veltar, the Zephyrian officer from the original First Contact mission, was being held prisoner. His ship had been captured during the battle for Earth's moon 2 weeks earlier. "Commander Veltar," Vasquez said, "I have a proposition for you." The alien looked up with his 4 eyes. "I will not betray my people, human." "I'm not asking you to betray anyone. I'm asking you to help save lives." Vasquez activated a portable display showing recent battle footage. The images showed Zephyrian ships being torn apart by human weapons, alien crews dying in the vacuum of space. "This is what happens when we fight your people in space battles," she said. "Lots of death, lots of destruction. Very inefficient." She switched to images from the supply depot capture. "This is what happens when your commanders surrender quickly. Everyone lives, we get what we need, and your people become prisoners instead of corpses." Veltar studied the images. "What do you want from me?" Help us contact other Zephyrian commanders. Explain to them that resistance is futile and surrender is the smart choice. The faster they give up, the fewer of your people die. You want me to convince my own species to surrender? I want you to convince them to survive. Vasquez sat down across from the alien. Commander, you've seen how humans fight. You know we don't follow the same rules as other species. We'll sacrifice our own lives to achieve our objectives. We'll use any weapon, any tactic, any strategy that works. Veltar's voice was quiet. Your species is completely insane. No, Commander, we're desperate, and desperate people are the most dangerous enemies you can face. Vasquez stood up and walked to the cell's window, which showed the captured supply depot and the human ships docked to it. Do you know what makes humans different from every other species you've conquered? She asked. Your willingness to die? Our willingness to adapt. Vasquez turned back to face him. Every species you've defeated fought the same way their ancestors fought for thousands of years. Traditional tactics, honorable combat, civilized warfare. But humans have spent our entire evolution fighting other humans. We know every dirty trick, every desperate strategy, every way to turn weakness into strength. She activated the display again, showing tactical analyses of recent battles. In 6 months, we've gone from chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel. In 3 weeks, we've captured 4 of your military installations. Every battle teaches us something new about your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. Veltar looked at the data in growing horror. You're learning our military secrets. More than that, we're learning how your entire civilization works, your supply chains, your communication networks, your command structure. And once we understand how something works, you find ways to break it, Veltar finished. Exactly. Vasquez leaned against the wall. Commander, your people made a mistake when they tried to conquer Earth. You assumed we were just another primitive species that would either submit or be destroyed. But we're not like the others. What are you? Vasquez smiled, and there was no warmth in the expression. We're the species that survived by being the most successful predators on our planet. We're the species that turned warfare into an art form. We're the species that would rather die fighting than live as slaves. She stood up to leave, then turned back one more time. And now we have faster-than-light travel and your technology. Think about that, Commander. Think about what happens when the most dangerous species in the galaxy finally reaches the stars. As Vasquez walked away, she could hear Veltar calling after her. What do you want me to tell the other commanders? Tell them the truth, she replied without turning around. Tell them they're not fighting a primitive species anymore. They're fighting humanity. And humanity doesn't lose wars. We just get better at winning them. Behind her, Veltar stared at the display showing human ships throughout Zephyrian space, and for the first time in his long military career, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear of a species that refused to accept defeat. Part 5. The Apex Predator's Terms General. Marcus Torres stood in the grand chamber of the Zephyrian High Council on their capital world of Zephyr Prime, surrounded by representatives from hundreds of star systems. 8 months had passed since humanity's first strike against Zephyrian territory, and the war that was supposed to last days had changed the entire galaxy. Council leader Mordak, ancient even by Zephyrian standards, looked down at Torres from his elevated platform. His arms trembled slightly. Whether from age or fear, Torres couldn't tell. General Torres of Earth, Mordak began, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. You have requested this gathering to discuss terms. The Confederation is prepared to negotiate your species' surrender. Torres smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Council leader, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not here to surrender. I'm here to accept yours. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. In 10,000 years of Confederation history, no primitive species had ever demanded the surrender of their conquerors. That's impossible, Mordak replied. Your species has 12 ships. We have thousands. Had thousands, Torres corrected. According to our intelligence, you currently have about 600 operational vessels scattered across your territory. The rest are either destroyed, captured, or hiding in defensive positions. He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The image showed the current state of Zephyrian space. Red dots indicating human-controlled systems, yellow dots showing contested areas, and green dots representing the shrinking area still under Confederation control. In 8 months, humanity has captured or destroyed 47 military installations, liberated 15 subjugated species, and gained control of 6 star systems. We've done this with a fleet that started with 12 ships. Impossible, whispered another council member. No species develops technology that quickly. You're right, Torres agreed. Most species don't. But most species don't have our advantages. He touched a control on his wrist, and the display changed to show footage from recent battles. Zephyrian commanders watched in horror as human ships used tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Advantage 1. We don't fight fair. While your admirals plan elegant strategies, our captains ram ships into your formations, detonate weapons inside your hulls, and sacrifice themselves to take out key targets. The footage showed Captain Sarah Kim's ship Retribution flying directly into a Zephyrian battlecruiser, both vessels exploding in a ball of plasma that took out 3 other enemy ships. Advantage 2. We learn faster than you can adapt. Every battle teaches us something new about your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. We reverse engineer your equipment, steal your battle plans, and turn your own weapons against you. New images appeared showing human factories mass-producing improved versions of Zephyrian technology, ships that looked like crude copies of alien designs, but mounted weapons that fired faster and hit harder than the originals. Advantage 3. We reproduce faster than you can kill us. Every month, Earth launches 50 new ships crewed by volunteers who grew up hearing stories about Zephyrian oppression. We're not just fighting a war. We're fighting for the survival of our species. The display showed endless streams of human vessels leaving Earth's shipyards, each one carrying soldiers who had volunteered for missions with low survival rates. But the real advantage, Torres continued, is that we understand something your species has forgotten. He paused, looking around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces filled with fear and confusion. We understand that sometimes the only way to achieve peace is to make war so terrible that your enemies never want to fight you again. The holographic display changed one final time, showing a real-time map of Zephyrian space. Red warning signals were flashing throughout their territory. Right now, human strike teams are positioned at every major Zephyrian world. Our ships are in orbit around your colonies, our soldiers are aboard your space stations, and our weapons are aimed at your population centers. Mordak's 4 eyes widened in horror. You're threatening civilian targets. That violates every law of warfare. Whose laws? Torres asked calmly. Your laws? The same laws that allowed you to conquer and enslave hundreds of species? The same laws that said primitive worlds had no right to refuse your protection? He stepped closer to the council platform. Let me tell you about human law, council leader. Human law says that any species that threatens our freedom becomes our enemy. Any enemy that refuses to surrender becomes a target. And any target that stands between us and victory gets removed from the equation. You're bluffing, another council member said. No civilized species would actually attack civilians. Torres looked at the alien with cold eyes. We're not civilized, we're human. There's a difference. He activated his communicator. Captain Chen, please give the council a demonstration of human resolve. On the display, one of the red dots in Zephyrian space suddenly flared brighter. A moment later, data streams began, flowing across the screen. The mining colony at Vega 7 has just surrendered to human forces, Torres announced. Captain Chen's boarding teams are now in control of their tritium refineries. The colony's governor agreed to cooperation after Captain Chen explained what would happen to his facilities if he refused. Mordak leaned forward. What did happen? Nothing. Yet. But Captain Chen did show him footage from the Kepler system, where a Zephyrian commander chose to fight rather than surrender. There's not much left of that system now. The council chamber erupted in frightened whispers. The destruction of the Kepler system had shocked the galaxy, an entire star system reduced to rubble by human weapons that turned stars into bombs. You destroyed a star, Mordak said quietly. We destroyed a military target that happened to be a star. The Zephyrians were using it to power a massive weapons platform. We simply destabilized the star's core and let physics do the rest. Torres walked to the center of the chamber, looking up at the council members. Council leader, your species has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years through superior technology and the threat of force. But you've forgotten what real force looks like. You've forgotten what happens when a species fights not for conquest but for survival. He gestured to the holographic display still showing human forces throughout Zephyrian space. We're offering you the same choice you offered us 8 months ago. Surrender and accept our terms for peaceful coexistence. Refuse, and we'll demonstrate. Why evolution made us Earth's apex predator? What are your terms? Mordak asked. Torres activated a datapad and began reading. First, the Zephyrian Confederation will immediately release all subjugated species and grant them full independence. Second, all protection agreements and tribute systems will be dissolved. Third, the Confederation will provide technological assistance and reparations to species harmed by your expansion policies. Those terms would destroy our civilization, a council member protested. Fourth, the Confederation will accept human oversight of all military activities to ensure compliance with these terms. Fifth, any species that requests Earth's protection will receive it, backed by the full force of human military power. Torres looked up from his datapad. And finally, the Confederation will formally recognize the Human Protection Doctrine. Earth guarantees the independence of any species threatened by forced subjugation. Any attempt to conquer, enslave, or protect another species without their consent will be considered an act of war against humanity. The chamber fell silent. What Torres was proposing wasn't just the end of the war. It was the end of the Zephyrian Empire and the beginning of human dominance in the galaxy. You want us to become your subjects, Mordak said. No, Torres replied. We want you to become civilized. There's a difference. He walked toward the chamber's exit, then turned back one final time. Council leader, humanity didn't ask for this war. We didn't want to become a galactic power. We were perfectly happy on our one small planet, exploring space and developing our own civilization. His voice grew harder. But you forced us to become something else. You tried to make us slaves, so we became predators. You threatened our survival, so we learned to threaten yours. You taught us that the galaxy was ruled by force, so we became a force you can't ignore. Torres activated his communicator again. All human fleets. This is General Torres. The Confederation has 24 hours to accept our terms. If they refuse, implement the final protocol. He looked up at Mordak one last time. Council leader, you have 24 hours to decide whether you want to be remembered as the leader who brought peace to the galaxy or as the one who forced humanity to demonstrate why we're the most dangerous species among the stars. As Torres left the chamber, the council members stared at the holographic display showing human ships throughout their territory. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Zephyrian Confederation faced an enemy they couldn't defeat, couldn't understand, and couldn't ignore. The age of human dominance in the galaxy had begun, and it had begun with a simple message. Never try to cage a predator. It only makes them stronger.